Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are finally looking at the SH Figuarts Super Mario line of figures, BOWSER. Oh guys, you know how I feel about the Mario line. I wanted it to be so much, and it turned out that it really wasn't. And most of you agreed with me that it's pretty much a letdown. It's the best we have, but that doesn't really mean that much. And I feel like this BOWSER is very much in the same line as all of the other things in this line. No pun intended. It does look really good. They did the sculpt job really nicely. The paint job's really nice, but is it worth the price tag? I don't know. The articulation is almost useless and we have some issues to talk about, so let's just get him off the stand and take a closer look. Alright, so this BOWSER stands just about 12 centimeters. You can see he's kind of bent over a little bit, but you can't do much about that. So at this probably average pose height, he's about 12 centimeters, which makes him just under 5 inches, about 4 3/4 inches tall. Now, one of the biggest complaints many people had about this BOWSER prior to it being released was that it looks really tiny. We're going to get to that at the end of the video. I'm going to compare him to Mario and to the Jakks-Pacific BOWSER, but for the meat of this video, we're just going to talk about this guy on his own merits, and we'll see how that turns out. So like I said, the paint's pretty good, albeit it's very absent. There's not a whole lot of paint. We have a little bit throughout the whites and blacks, but some of that is molded plastic, obviously, and then some of it's paint. The shell is mostly molded, only the spikes are painted, so you know, there's really no shading or anything on this guy. It's just the molded parts and then bits of paint scattered about, which is pretty much the same as the Mario and the Yoshi and everybody else. As little paint as possible, which it's sculpted nicely. Everything's textured if it's supposed to be, so that kind of makes up for it a little bit. I really would like some shading. This is the Figuarts line of figures. They're known for their paint jobs being good. They're known for their articulation being good. And if the paint's only acceptable and the articulation's almost non-existent, what is it that we're paying for? That's what I want to know. Now, the best part about this guy is his head, his face. It's nicely sculpted for sure. It's really accurate, looks good. You can see they did a good job with the eyes. They're really clearly painted. So that's a good thing. You can see we have the texturing on the green and on the hair, so again, that's a good thing. The mouth is well enough done. It's mostly separate parts with just a tiny bit of paint in there, so it's good in that there's no spillover or anything like that, but it's bad in that you can see lines from the separate molded parts in there, so you're gonna have to kind of choose your battle with this guy. So before we get into the figure anymore, let's talk about accessories. We have 3 different mouth parts. We have this one, which as you can see is open a little bit. Not the most open ever, but it is open. You can kind of fit your finger in there. So it's not hugely open. It's not like he's really roaring or anything like that, but it is somewhat open. Then we also have this one, which you can see they just peg right in. There's a big tab and 2 little round pegs. Then we have this one, which is still obviously open a little bit, but it's mostly closed. Is it necessary to have both? I'm not sure. I mean, it's fine that we have both, but they don't really provide that much of a difference. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. I think the money could have been better spent on making the figure a better figure all around. Then we have one more mouth, and this one is the one I was really looking forward to because it has this really nicely made translucent flame effect. It's very translucent, fades from yellow to kind of an orangish color, and I thought that was going to be really cool. But then when I first put it in, I noticed a problem, and I think you guys will too. It doesn't really fit in the mouth properly. It wedges the fire up against the top part of the mouth, which is really odd. It just looks weird. It should definitely be narrower or just better sculpted to fit in the mouth. It looks like it should be down like this. So that's coming out of the center of the mouth rather than up and basically coming out between the top teeth. It's not a huge deal, obviously, but it's very strange, and it's even so much, wow. It's pushing up against the top of the mouth so much that it's kind of hard to even peg it in all the way. I'm not sure if you guys can see in there, but the gap is not fully closed just because it doesn't fit properly. So it's very disappointing. I don't care for that very much at all. And then in terms of other accessories, we really just have the display stand, which is your standard Figuarts Mario display stand, but instead of green, it is gray, and it comes with the little tiny upright rather than the full-size one. And the thing that really drives me nuts about this display stand, most figures are meant to go on the display stand facing away from the upright. And that kind of makes sense, right? You don't want that to be the focus. Well, BOWSER here was made for the upright to peg right into his taint, which is not a good thing. We don't really want that. I mean, you have to peg it in right there. And so the display stand goes in front of the figure and pegs right into his business, his cash and prizes, right in the you know what I'm talking about. Terrible design. Why is that? Why does he have a giant clear display stand coming out of his groin? I don't like that at all, and you don't even need it. He's definitely not the kind of figure that's going to have a problem standing. He's got a very wide base and big flat feet, so you don't need the display stand, but now he's got either a really low navel or a really forward other orifice, which, you know, I don't know. I don't get that. That it bothers me so much that they put a peg hole right there. Even if you don't want to relate it to some kind of immature genitalia commentary, it still just looks bad. Why do that? Makes no sense. All right, we have two more accessories, which are the hands. Obviously, the hands are not a big deal on this guy because he's not going to be posed very dynamically. These are the standard hands, and he also comes with two hands that are slightly less standard, and I can just pop those on real quick for you to see. They don't have any articulation other than a swivel, so it's not like a real big deal. So you can compare the two. This is the open style hand, which we get for both sides, and this is the normal hand. Just barely different. So it's like, come on, put some effort into the figure. At least give him a fist hand if you're going to give him something new. But no, we have two open claw hands, which are essentially the same. They're not going to affect your posing in any real way. So very disappointed so far in the accessories. Sure, they are there, but do they actually help anything? And the answer is no, they don't. Now let's talk about articulation. The head is on some crazy joint because I don't know why. I couldn't tell you. You would think it would be pretty easy to just make that neck curved, you know, like a regular ball socket, only put the double ball peg down in here and have a giant curved neck so you can lean it from side to side and that kind of thing. Rotate it around, no problem, but no. The head is completely cut off. It's big and flat right in there. There's no curvature to hide that opening. And he's on this really offset, I think it's actually a double offset, double ball peg. And so when you rotate it around, it works okay. You still get this giant gapping, but that's all right. And if you look up, you get a gap. And if you look down, you can't really look down. But then he also has that. What is that? Why is that a thing? Why? Can you see in there to see that joint? You see the ball peg in there? Hopefully you can. And then, I don't know if I can show you any better. It's on like an S-shaped peg. I don't get, what is that? Why is that a thing? That's not a thing. What the heck? I don't like that at all. All I needed was a double ball peg, and it would have been fine. And then the hair, they really went the extra mile here. This hairpiece has a hinge in it. Call the news. We need to tell everybody. We have a hinge for the hair so that he can do that, because that's super necessary. Oh my goodness. So then we have a fixed ball hinge. You can even kind of see it in there for the shoulder. It's a ball hinge that lets the arm move forward and back, like that's really vital. And then it's connected on a ball peg, which is fine, but you still, you know, it's really essentially just going to swivel around. It's just going to rotate. You get a little bit out of it, but it's pretty inconsequential, the amount of motion you get in the shoulder, which, I mean, I get it, it's BOWSER, but I feel like they still could have done better. Especially since they added a swivel right here, which, why do you need that swivel at the bicep thing when this whole arm rotates? It's literally the exact same motion. Why do we have that? I don't get it. And then you have the swivel in the wrist, which is obviously necessary for posing, but you really can't pose him that much. You're going to go from arms slightly up to arms slightly down. Slightly forward, slightly back. I mean, you're really not going to be posing this guy very much at all. Maybe that's as good as they could do, but I feel like it's not. I feel like they could have pushed the joint out farther, give him a larger ball hinge, and then this arm could really move around, but no. And then for the hips, ball peg. Single ball peg, which is fine, but, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Why is there a giant gap again? Why do they need to create these giant gaps and ugly articulation on the Mario figures? It's not that hard. Then we have a ball peg for the foot, which is fine. It doesn't give you the best range. You can bring the foot forward like that, which isn't really going to help. We'll bring the foot down, leg forward, because you can't really pose him like that, but you can't bring it back. So if you wanted to pose him like this, you can't tilt it any farther. He does have a little bit of an ankle rocker, so you're going to basically just be able to get him to stand level on different surfaces. That's about it. And the tail. No articulation at all on the tail. So all in all, for 50 bucks, I feel like he's way overpriced. Not particularly pleased with this guy. They didn't really spend the money on anything. He has a little more plastic than your average Figuarts, but that's about it. So I gotta say, it's not terrible. I'm way less disappointed in this than Mario, but it's not great. And that's all prior to considering the fact that he's relatively small. So that's where we're gonna talk about that. So there's Bowser. We thought he was gonna be kind of small, and let's get Mario in here. Don't worry, I know the camera's low and it's like that for a reason. So there's Mario and there's Bowser, which I guess it's acceptable. Bowser's slightly bigger than Mario, and originally they weren't that far different. So I can kind of let that slide, except in almost every iteration of Bowser since the original, he's been massive compared to Mario. So I'm feeling kind of like that Bowser's not big enough. I kind of feel like I need a bigger Bowser. So let's look at this guy. The Jakks Pacific Bowser, which is quite a lot larger than this Bowser. Significantly. We'll bring Mario back in a second. Right there. So obviously we can talk about a few things. This guy's sculpt nowhere near as nice. His articulation, a lot more basic. His paint, a lot more basic. But this guy only costs $10 to $15. This guy costs around $50. It's up to you to decide which one you want to get, but I'm thinking for most people, they're going to opt to have the bigger, acceptable Bowser. Let's get him in the frame. The bigger, acceptable Bowser to go with their collection at just a fraction of the cost as compared to the nicer overall quality, but significantly smaller Bowser. It's up to you guys to decide. I can't tell you. I think this one is worth $15. I don't know if this one is worth 50. 50 is an awful big number for this particular figure. So again, it's going to be up to you guys. There you have it. I'm done talking. I know that was a long video, but I just can't help it sometimes. So there you go. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I review tons of figures. I have a new video up every day, at least one, sometimes more than one. And we talk about video games, movies, TV, action figures, customs, all kinds of stuff. So make sure you subscribe, guys. And in the meantime, keep collecting.